Okay, let's dive right in. What if we thought about elections not as a contest of ideals, but as a high-stakes auction? That's the idea we're going to unpack today.
So let's start with a really basic question. When you walk into that voting booth, what are you actually voting for? Are you backing an inspiring grand vision for the future? Or are you signing off on a contract that's based on what's, actually possible? That tension is really at the heart of everything we're about to explore.
The source material for this analysis puts it perfectly. It says our job as citizens isn't just to get swept up in the show. It's to do the kind of tedious hard work of figuring out which promises can actually be kept and which ones are pure fantasy. So let's start by looking at the auction itself.
Right, so this idea frames modern elections as a kind of presidential auction. Imagine a state-funded reality show where all the candidates are bidders and they're all promising to save the country. It's a really powerful way to think about it, and you're about to see why.
I mean, think about it, right? Campaign platforms, they really do look like these glossy catalogs. They're just filled with beautiful pictures of a perfect future, what the source calls prepaid utopias. But what's always missing? The fine print, the real cost, the compromises, all the real-world roadblocks that get in the way.
So how do we actually get past those glossy pages? How do we see what's behind the sales pitch? Well, we have to apply a reality check. And this is where we shift from the big spectacle of the campaign to the serious business of actually governing.
And this leads us to the most critical and honestly, the most uncomfortable question of the whole thing. It's not about what a candidate dreams of doing. It's about what their dreams can actually survive. Can their big ideas make it past the hard limits of the Constitution and the even harder limits of the national budget?
To figure that out, the argument is that any political promise has to pass three big tests. First, is it constitutional? Does it play by the fundamental rules of the game? Second, is it fiscally sound? I mean, can the country actually afford it? And third, is it institutionally possible? Can it get through Congress, the courts, the bureaucracy, the whole shebang?
Okay, so with those tests in mind, let's take a look at the bidders in this auction. We're going to examine a whole range of candidates from the Chilean political scene, and each one is presenting a pretty unique catalog of promises.
So on one side, you've got bids that are all about creating order. You have Jose Antonio Kast, who offers something called institutional orthodoxy, basically a promise to restore order using the tools we already have, free markets and a strong hand. Then you have Matthei. Her bid is efficient technocracy. Think of her platform less as an ideology and more like a CEO's business plan for the country. Super pragmatic, focused on results you can measure.
Then you've got another set of bids that are responding to how unhappy people are. Jara proposes social repair. The idea is to fix the system from the inside with more wealth redistribution and better public services. But in total contrast, you have Franco Parisi, who's tapping into civic disillusionment. He's got this powerful anti-establishment message. The promise is to just burn the old system down. But, as the source points out, it's institutionally hollow. It's not at all clear what would actually replace it.
And believe me, the auction floor is crowded. You've got everything from the goodwill politics of May Nichols to the radical libertarianism of Kaiser, all the way to a total refoundation from Artes and the modern reformism of Enriquez Ominami. It is a massive spectrum of competing ideas about where to take the country.
So, you've got all these bids on the table. How in the world do you sort through them? Well, this is where we bring back those three tests of feasibility. And when you apply them, things get really interesting.
Because when you run the promises through that reality check, the candidates start to fall into two very distinct camps. On one side, you've got the viable but conservative. Think Kast and Matthei. Their plans pretty much fit within the existing rules. And on the other side, the visionary but unworkable, like Jara and Artes. And that is the fundamental trade-off that voters are facing. Let's look a little closer at that first camp. The proposals from candidates like Kast and Matthei are seen as viable because they work within the existing boundaries, constitutional, fiscal, and institutional. The promise here isn't some huge transformation, it's stability. It's a predictable, maybe uninspiring, but stable path forward. The source literally calls it boring stability.
In the other camp? Well, this is where you find those grand visions for a completely different kind of society. The argument from the source is that while these ideas might be inspiring, they collide head-on with reality. They need massive constitutional rewrites, huge tax overhauls, and a level of political agreement that just doesn't exist. So the promise is profound, but the delivery is seen as impossible change.
Okay, so this brings us to the final and most crucial point of this whole analysis.
What is the real cost of winning the auction? Because it's not just about winning votes, it's about being able to actually govern.
And this is maybe the ultimate rule of this whole auction. At the end of the day, the winner isn't the bidder who makes the most dazzling promises. No, it's the one who can actually afford to deliver on them.
And this leads to the final big takeaway, which comes in two parts. The source concludes that in an election like this one, voters aren't really choosing between these grand, competing national projects.
What they're really choosing is a degree of realism. They're choosing their own comfort level with that trade-off between inspiring dreams and the hard, cold constraints of reality. It's a choice between the allure of the impossible and the security of manageable.
Which leaves us all with this one last question to think about. In any election, really anywhere in the world, what actually wins? Is it the power of the most beautiful, inspiring dream? Or is it the quiet, unglamorous logic of the most affordable reality?